There's something I noticed. Yes, there is. There's something that I've noticed. Before and after the pandemic. Before the pandemic, it seemed easier. It seemed easier, yes, it seemed easier. Though, that is not by coincidence. That is not because it became easier after the pandemic. If anything, it had not become easier. But is that to say it has become harder? For some factors, yes. But for socialization, not exactly. Now I will explain this point. Yes, I shall. What I refer to is that after the pandemic, the structures of socialization were diminished. They were damaged. Yes, they were. They were damaged. And what were they damaged from, you may be asking? What were they damaged from? They were damaged from discomfort. Discomfort, I tell you. Discomfort in what, you may be asking? Discomfort in what? Well, discomfort in the not wanting to try something new. Not wanting to try something new, as at that point it had become socially normal to want to stay in the house. It had become uncomfortable to leave the house. It had become uncomfortable to want to introduce yourself. Look around you. You may notice that in the modern day, places like the public parks, the public theaters are all drying up. Now, this is a natural thing that was going to happen anyways in regards to the internet, because you may know that you stream movies to your friends, you may watch YouTube with your friends, and this is much more in contact with the world, because in this day and age our friends are usually more long distance than it was. But what produced this? What had produced this, I ask you? Why are more of our friends more long distance than they were back in 2019, back in 2018, in 2017, I ask you? How many of your friends back in those times were more localized? How many of your friends were not merely online, but also had online friends? Most likely a lot of them, such as myself. I tell you that the natural drying up of the public parks and theaters were natural, but the pandemic had exacerbated it. It had propelled it. It had increased it. It was going to happen, but the pandemic, it increased the speed of it. Now, what is the point of bringing up the pandemic? The point of bringing up the pandemic is that because the pandemic led to social friction in the modern day. Yes, it has. It had released into the public social friction. Now, what type of social friction, you may be asking specifically? The type of social friction specifically of which it has released is the uncomfortability of wanting to do something, of wanting to have something new, because people are anxious. People don't like things that are unknown. They do not like risk. Now, how do we fix this problem? First, we address the problem. We see the problem for what it is. It is fear. It is anxiety. That's all it is. It is anxiety. It is your emotions getting in the way of your emotional self, of what you are wanting. There is a difference between who you are and who you think you are and who you feel you are. There is a big difference between all those three things. Yes, there are. Because who you are is the result of who you thought you were, and then following the idea of who you thought you were, and who you wish to be and make yourself be. And I tell you now that you can be anything of which you want to be, of which you have properly set up. I may not be a master chess player today, but if tomorrow I start training to be the master chess player, then in the future I will be the master chess player. But I can't do that today. I can't do that tomorrow of becoming the master chess player. I have to invest time, invest the possibility of mobility. Now, this brings us back to possibility. This brings us back to what the pandemic has done. The pandemic removed possibility. It removed social function when it was most active. You may remember the lockdowns. I remember the lockdowns quite well, but not fondly, I would say. During this time, you may notice afterwards, people are more asocial. People don't want to go now. People don't communicate as much. People have made their own worlds, of which were their houses at the time, and now make it their own internet spaces. Yes, they have. People have tailored their own worlds, their own wonderlands, per se. But it is now time for us to exit those worlds and combine those worlds into something beautiful, into a shared world, a shared cognition, you may even say, a shared society, because a society cannot function via one person. It cannot function from a monoculture. It cannot function from a closed system, your closed system. It cannot function only with. It must function with an open system, multiple people, multiple things, open communication. So I encourage you to go outside. Go outside, and not just go outside, but communicate to someone. Ask them how they were, ask them how they do, because I guess that you may not even been asked that. You may not even been asked that yesterday. And that's a possibility and a reality for some people, that they were not asked how their day was. Now, why is this? It is because of the aforementioned asocial society of which we had become. And the internet is not the cause. It is not the cause. The internet is a safety net. The internet is a good way for communication, but we cannot forget the humanity. We cannot forget the people of which use the internet. The internet is a wonderful tool, sure. The internet is a way of magic, you may even say. Sure. But that's all it is. It is beautiful. But just like how someone may see the sunset at night or in the morning, it is not everything. There is still a moon. There is still a society other than the internet. There is still a thing that the internet is built upon, such as a natural daylight cycle. That is what the sun is a part of, just like how the internet is a part of humanity, about our natural unison and wanting for unison, our natural wanting to love and be loved. And what the pandemic has to do with this, of what it used to be, is that it, from the isolation, from the locking up, it has perpetuated, it has enabled. This was going to happen, one day or another. But it has happened now. It has happened before. Back in 2024, 2023, back when it was in its height. And then we forgot. We forgot how it used to be. Or we adopted the personality of isolation. What should we do? What is our answer? What is the answer? The answer, I tell you now, The answer is to communicate. The answer is within humanity and within yourself. It always was. The answer has always been there. It has never changed. You're not different. There's no new world after the pandemic. It may feel like that because the very barrier and very foundation of society has shifted. It has. What has it shifted to? It has shifted to a world that wants to be independent. But what is it doing to do this? Isolation. In this world, there is no being alone. There is no being without another person. We have seen the results of what this does. We have seen the mental health crisis rise. We have seen a bad tomorrow. But I tell you, we no longer need this. I tell you that we should have conversation not just on the internet, but in person, with people, such as how you have conversation with people on the internet. You may not be aware, but there's a big separation between the people on the internet and the people who do not use the internet. You may not be aware that some people frown upon the internet, that some people frown upon the concept of FaceTimes, that people do not understand this concept. And I tell you not to just argue, not to just accept this. I tell you to communicate, find ways to literate the answer, find ways to translate. Yes, find ways to articulate this answer. Don't just beat people over the head with the answer. If I beat you with the dictionary, it will never make you learn. It will never make you learn if I beat you. If you lead a horse to water and force it to drink, that is cruel. That is not giving the horse an answer. The horse will never know why it must have drank. The horse will only think you're cruel and be pushed further and further away from you into its own system, into closing its system more. Use cleverness of the human society not as a weapon, not as a way to pick people's arguments apart, but as a way to translate and iterate arguments in other formats, in other languages, some may say, in other terminologies. Because such is the key to becoming a together society, into becoming a fulfilled society. The answer has always been humanity's love and humanity's cleverness. Humanity has always wanted unison. Why don't we make that happen?